Breaking: Biden targets President Trump, quote, MAGA extremists in unhinged, angry Valley Forge speech. Before leaving the stage, Biden yelled out, "I understand power." I just, this dude, I'm sorry, man. Joe Biden is just not with it. Okay. He is old. He is incomprehensible. And the idea that he could hold this position is laughable. But of course, there are a lot of people that want him to have this position. To be fair, that number is dwindling every single day. We had that story yesterday where his volunteers are quitting in droves. But let's start by playing this clip from C-SPAN, because, you know, sometimes I don't know if I would use the word unhinged as liberally as, say, like the post-millennial would, but I have to agree with him at least here, because when Joe Biden says we almost lost our country over January 6th, I'm like, unhinged. Absolutely detached from reality. After January 6th, one of the first things I said was, guys, it's not the 1600s anymore. You can't seize control of a government by standing in a building. But Joe Biden apparently thinks it is, because he's probably old enough to remember. But here's the clip. Let's play it.
I just visited the grounds of Valley Forge. I've been there a number of times from the time I was a Boy Scout years ago. You know, it's the very site that I think every American should visit, because it tells a story of the pain and the suffering and the true patriotism it took to make America. Today, we gather in a new year, some 246 years later, just one day before January 6th. A date forever shared in our memory because it was on that day that we nearly lost America. Lost it all. Today, we're here to answer the most important of questions. Is democracy still America's sacred cause?
No.
It was never.
Yeah, I don't think it ever was.
This is not rhetorical, academic, or hypothetical. Whether democracy is still America's sacred cause is the most urgent question of our time.
He's correct. Well, he's correct. See, the parasitic, woke individuals who are trying to displace the American constitutional republic with their multicultural democracy are terrified that those who believe in the constitutional republic and the vision of the founding fathers, they're terrified that we're winning. And so when Joe Biden gets up there and says our democracy, you need to understand he's not talking about you guys, because when we sit here and say this country has never been a democracy, he clearly isn't talking to us. This was really fascinating. During the COVID lockdowns, when you saw Ron DeSantis relieving the lockdown pressure, when Kristi Noem, she didn't lock down South Dakota, Joe Biden made a statement about how we are all doing this thing, how we must do this, we are doing this. And I noticed something really interesting. I said, that's fascinating because the red states aren't doing this, only the blue states are. So when Joe Biden addresses the nation and says what we are doing, he's explicitly saying, I am not talking to you Republicans. And when he does this, it's the exact same message.
It's actually a Maoist, or it harkens back to Maoism. When Mao would talk about the communists, he would talk about their democracy, and he would talk about the Chinese people and stuff. But he was only talking about people that shared his political perspective. James Lindsay has a great, and I know I bring up James Lindsay a lot, but James Lindsay has a great podcast on this that goes through one of Mao's speeches and actually compares it to one of Joe Biden's speeches. And I will find it and post it on my Twitter account. But it's what they do. They constantly, they exclude intentionally with language that sounds inclusive, but essentially if you are not thought of as, or if you're not in their in-group, you're thought of as not a whole person. That's one of the things that Mao said. If you weren't a communist, you didn't have a soul. They really looked at it like almost a spiritual thing. So it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't do anything that he said he was going to do when it comes to trying to bring the U.S. together. So
reminds me of when they said not my president, but like an inversion of that, like not my people.
Yeah, almost, yeah.
I when I talk to children in particular, I say, what form of government we're in? They say, let's say pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands. Right there in the Pledge of Allegiance. And when these liberals come up and say democracy and ignore that we're a republic with constitutional laws and rights, it's as if they think they can just, whatever they feel like, make it the law. Even it totally tramples your rights as an individual, your freedoms. And it's not our government.
I think that I think that the attempts to adjust language and meanings of words is actually, or what it boils down to, is an attempt to circumvent the law. Because if they can convince you that the words contained in a piece of legislation don't mean what they plainly mean, what you would plainly understand them to mean, then the whole meaning of the law changes. That's one of the things, again, that you hear land dedications often, and those should be completely and totally off limits, because what it does is it plants the seed of illegitimacy of the United States. That means that the land that you're on, whoever owns it, they acquired it illegitimately. That means that the government can take it because you're not protected by the Fourth Amendment for illegitimately acquired lands. And those kind of twisting of meanings is what the left does constantly. They've been doing it. And if people want to argue and say, no, right now we are literally in the United States arguing over what a woman is.
They Democrats, the corporate press, they're very good at controlling the debate itself. And pulling you away from arguing about what you want into arguing on their terms. So instead of arguing why we should get rid of gun control, we're arguing to what degree we accept gun control. And to be fair, it is Republicans in the past who have been in favor of gun control too.
Yes.
But where we are now, the people who claim that we're a democracy are the people who think that they can simply get together, and if there are more of them than you, they can decide to vote and you no longer have rights. That's not how a republic works. A democracy is two wolves and a lamb deciding what's for lunch. A republic is a well-armed lamb contesting the vote. That's, I believe, I'm probably not getting it absolutely correctly, but I believe Benjamin Franklin said that. That's the point. The wolves can vote whatever they want. Yeah. You have a right to live. They can't just vote to eat you.
Yeah.
But the way these people view it is, look, there's a reason why Joe Biden is unambiguous. He is facilitating illegal immigration into this country on a mass scale, colluding with human traffickers, and his administration explicitly smuggling children in the dead of night on these planes, and faster and more than ever. And it's because their mentality is, if the population of your country doesn't agree with you, import a different one.
And the other way to say democracy, it's mob rule.
Yeah.
If you have 51% of the vote, you can take away the rights of the other 49%. And take the thing like free speech. I never thought, in my last 4 years in Congress, when Democrats had total control, that they really thought they could throw people off the internet. I mean, when they threw Donald Trump off Twitter, for example, you think if you can throw the president off, do you think the rest of Americans won't be thrown off the social media if the left or the owners think it's something you just say something you disagree with? And to think that they can tell us what we can say and what we can even think. And I'm telling you, I've seen it, man, in Congress. I've seen them put that stuff in. The witch hunt investigations, where the rule of law has been applied one way for Republicans, another way for Democrats. It is scary. And you mentioned, anti-communist. My mother fled a communist country. She was born and raised in Cuba.
Oh, okay.
And she came here when she was 20 to live in freedom, as have many other immigrants who've come here legally. And to see the left in this country act that way, that we're not a republic, it's whatever they want they can do to us, it is scary. And it is as scary as your listeners might think, if not more so, what I've actually seen.
Michael Malice makes the excellent point. It can be much worse than you think.
Yeah.
People don't realize what bad is.
Yeah.
And so they hear these stories about communism, and it's just like the typical thing you hear about what communist countries do is the light side of how bad it gets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Today, shout out to the Punk Rock MBA on Twitter. He is a YouTuber. His name's Finn McKinty. He made a video about the breakup of Rage Against the Machine, and he was rightly critical of the band using communist imagery. It's unacceptable. It's like using Nazi imagery. Communists killed millions and millions and millions of people. There's a reason why I say every day that I'm on the show that I'm an anti-communist and counter-revolutionary, because that's an actual, like, there are people in the United States Congress that are in the DSA. The DSA constantly tweets supportive messages about Marx. They tweet supportive messages about Lenin. Like, this is not a joke, and you bring it up to people. They're so quick to say that we have a right-wing problem in the United States, to the point where the right is almost just the concept of the right is synonymous with bad. And that's just so detached from reality. You can look at the right and say there are bad things that have been done from people on the right, or bad ideas that have come from the right, fine. But to think that an entire philosophy, because right now on the right is where the Enlightenment lives, right? Like all of your romantic philosophies, like socialism is a romantic philosophy. It's based in the idea that you can will things into existence as opposed to reason, like the Enlightenment. And the idea that this stuff is acceptable is just it's so bad for the country, and it will cause massive problems, and we're starting to see them.
It's bad for the world.
Yeah, 100%, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's failed everywhere it's been tried. Why do we need to try it again?
Yep. I mean,
They're not going to stop trying.
I can go on and on about this.
You see that
Same
meme
here, man.
That meme where what was that woman? She's like from Al Jazeera and Plus or whatever, and she says, just because socialism hasn't been implemented properly doesn't mean we just give up.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you got to break some eggs or whatever, and then someone responds with, "Oops, I burned the souffle," and it shows the killing fields or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, dude,
Nobody knows about all these things that happen.
And
they only know about like the right stuff, and they don't realize socialism is a road to communism.
Well,
That's the whole point.
I was talking over the holidays with people, and everyone's heard of the right-wing boogeyman. Joe Biden giving the speech like, "Oh, MAGA," and I'm talking to people. I'm like, did you know that in 2020 we saw the worst riots this country's seen in 5 decades? It was the left. Did you know that on May 29th, 2020, thousands of far-left extremists firebombed the White House, setting fire to a guard post, setting fire to St. John's Church, the historical church across the street? 70 plus police officers were injured in the scuffle, and the president was forced into an emergency bunker. They go, what? We've had people on this show. We had Marianne Williamson, I asked her, and she's like, I don't know what happened with that. What are you talking about? It's like, how do you not know what is happening in your backyard? Look, Marianne Williamson is a very, very nice lady, and she is more deserving of being president than Joe Biden and any other Democrat running for the Democrats. But I got to be honest, if you don't know that the house you are seeking to occupy was firebombed only a couple of years ago, I'm not sure you're fit for the job. It's something you should know.
They call them mostly peaceful protests when they do it.
When they were burning down a police station.
Yeah, burn down police station.
Which you like young people don't realize it, but I mean, I'm probably your age, you're probably my age. Like back in the 80s, these kinds of phrases we were familiar with because we would watch I watched a bunch of shows about Russia, about a lot of stuff about East Germany. There was this one show about paintball, like these kids that used to play paintball and they got mixed up with spies in East Germany. It was super cool. But the point is, like, you would hear how in communist countries and in socialist countries, how phrases would be said, and everybody was aware that they did not mean what they said. Like the words that they were saying and the meaning behind the words were totally incongruous.
Well, it's like what we saw with Vivek Ramaswamy. He gets questioned by that Washington Post woman, and she says, will you condemn white supremacy? And he's like, I condemn all forms of racial discrimination. And it's because white supremacy to the left means something different than what it actually means. They have their own different language. It's fascinating. They use words that to them mean something, but to us mean something different on purpose to trick us and to trick the ignorant. And so when Vivek Ramaswamy gets interviewed by those two women, by that Dasha Burns or whatever her name is, it's one of the most that lady needs to be fired. But I understand NBC is not a news organization. They're an activist organization. So why would they fire their proselytizers? But this woman, Dasha, is not interviewing a presidential candidate. She's berating someone over her personal, emotional activist cause. And Vivek accurately points out the issue with white supremacy is that they define it as punctuality and like an hour-based work schedule. So I need to understand, is that what you want me to condemn? And she's just interrupting him nonstop. It's fascinating when Vivek is on the CNN town hall debate stage. They always have to interrupt because they're not journalists. Yeah. They're not here to say, tell me your thoughts on issue. They're here to say, here's what you're supposed to think on issue. Shut your mouth.
Yeah.
Just like it reminds me of the Trump CNN town hall thing every time. Just like they would ask him stuff and he would give an answer and then she would correct him with incorrect stuff.
It's just shocking to me. Again, I bring up, people that lived that were alive when communist countries were prevalent, when they were like during the Cold War. And it's like, why is it that I know there are people in Congress that are old enough to remember? Yeah. Why are they unaware? Why is it that none of the Republicans in Congress actually will call out the anyone on the squad and be like, why are you associating with the DSA when the DSA is tweeting Lenin quotes? Why are you associating with them? Why do you caucus with them? Why is that acceptable? And I mean, like, you guys should. I wish that you guys would do it, because you should be absolutely shamed into a cave if you sit there and walk around with a sickle and hammer, or if you're quoting Marx. And I mean, not to go back to the whole like Rage Against the Machine thing, but the guy's got a pedal that has a Lenin quote on it. Like, sometimes history needs a push. The push was 100 million people on the. It's a foot pedal made by Dunlop. It's his wah pedal on the side of it.
Wait, you can buy that from Dunlop?
Yeah, Dunlop Company. They have it's on the side. You
can go to the website, buy a pedal that has that quote on it.
I will bring up the picture, my friend. Wow. Yes, you can, absolutely. And it says,
that's wild.
It says, sometimes history needs a push, and that push, like I said, that push is 100 million dead people.
So let's clarify real quick. This is a guitar pedal available from Dunlop Corporation, the Dunlop Company, that you can go and buy right now with a Lenin quote on it that says, sometimes history needs a push.
Yes.
Everyone should email that company asking why they are calling for the genocide against Slavic people.
I can't think of any more clear way to put it than that. I mean,
yeah, let's play the game. Contact them and say, so this is like the signature. Sometimes history needs a push.
Yeah,
it's got a communist star.
It's got the red star on it, and it's on the side it says. Yeah, I just retweeted it. It's on the top of my.
Yeah, how about everybody reach out to Dunlop and ask them why they're selling genocidal, calling for genocide, why they're supporting genocide, and then see what they say.
This kind of stuff. The fact that we accept this as a society is because we have a red washed educational system.
That's Dunlop, you say, huh?
Yeah.
What do I got here?
Done with Dunlop.
This is a Fender guitar pick.
There you go.
I will not use Dunlop guitar picks anymore. I used to use Tortex. Those were the ones. Yeah. Not anymore.
That's Dunlop?
Yeah, the
Tortex?
The Jazz Tortex, the purple Jazz 3s.
No longer.
When you talk about my age and the history, I mean, I graduated high school in 89, went off to college, and there was a class on the Soviet Union. And part of the theme of the class was how that Soviet Union was there to stay. We have to learn to work with them, and they're never going to go away, except that it went away that year. They had to cancel the class because the Soviet Union fell apart completely because communism doesn't work, socialism doesn't work. Even that guy Joe Biden was head of Foreign Affairs Committee at the time and was one of the leading proponents of working with the Soviet Union, accepting them as an equal. Don't fight them.
Oh, really? Was he?
Yeah. Okay. Him and a bunch of lefties were, hey, we can't fight these guys. I guess they didn't have a problem with them. I don't know. But they were, they had the view that the Soviet Union was a workable economy and it was powerful and it was fine and we just got to accept them. And the Republicans didn't believe that. I mean, some did, some didn't, but they got crushed. And so they fell apart because it doesn't work.
I don't think they knew about
you don't need to push anything.
Yet.
Sorry?
Yeah.
I don't think they knew about the gulags yet.
No.
Who?
Back when they said that, probably.
Yeah, well, the countries within there, Poland, they were fighting for freedom.
Right.
They were believing in the right to have property and things and the stuff they'd had before they got taken over by the communists. Right. And they underestimated that and frankly threw them under the bus, saying that Soviet Union would never, dissolve. It dissolved. And it does, so
people didn't think
wrong.
that. Yeah, people really. That was kind of the general consensus, though. Like, it was information didn't travel the way that it does now. And back then, like, you didn't think that the Soviet Union was going to fall the day before it fell. Which it was on it's on December 26th. In case anyone wants to celebrate it with me every year, I
should. The Berlin Wall goes down.
Yeah, but it was the end of the Soviet Union. But yeah, like
here, let's show this real quick. This is I just Google searched it. There's a website called George's Music. I wouldn't recommend anyone contacting just like a small distributor or like a small retail store or whatever. But here's sometimes history needs a push, and that is the Crybaby Wah Tom Morello pedal.
Yep.
And here you can see from Brainy quote Vladimir Lenin. Sometimes history needs a push. So why don't we ask Dunlop why it is that that quote is specifically a call for genocide.
Yeah.
Historically, it's a call for genocide
because the push is millions dead.
The point was that there are people who are resistant to your changes. And if you're on the right side of history, you have to push against them.
Right.
And what was that push? They killed 100 million people in the history of communism.
Yep.
So, no. No Dunlop.
Yeah, that's pro-Bolshevik. No thanks.
It's frustrating. It's frustrating as hell. I called out, like, I was making a stink about this when, what was his name? Speaker Ryan talked about Rage Against the Machine. It was like 2012.
Oh, okay.
When Ryan was speaker, I called out. I was like, oh, blah blah blah, because he talked about you coming out to Rage Against the Machine or something like that, and
Coming out to them?
what he was walking out like.
I thought you said he was gay. I was like, what?
No, I mean, well, Ryan, Speaker Ryan, maybe, but either way, he caught some crap from the guys in Rage, and I wrote up an op-ed. I think they ran it in AP. But yeah,
Rage on behalf of the machine nowadays.
I was like, you're a commie. What are you talking about? And I was like, you can't sit there and talk about Republicans being bad when you're a literal communist, because it's no comparison. Any liberal, as much as the communists online want to swear up and down that capitalism actually kills millions of people and blah blah blah, any liberal should understand that a liberal society is far and away better than a communist society, and you should be able to vocally explain why. And you should be able to do that. You should be taught that stuff in school.
Yeah.
And now we've got LGBT studies in school and stuff.
Communism couldn't exist without capitalism.
Exactly.
In the first place. So all it really is just taking everyone back down until it fails, and then everyone has to start over from scratch. It's just perpetual.
Marx. Good.
No.
Marx knew that, like, the way Marx looked at it was like there's stages of history, and he thought that capitalism was going to get so successful and so abundant that you'd be able to have socialism, and it would be steps in history or whatever.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.